Lots of people cannot, you know, understand or just, relax and let it be that the Almighty is the infinite side of being mortal here on Earth. So when you look at the Ankh, not only was it two sides as far as what you thought was the natural, but the unnatural was also the part of it being a seed of death because it's upside down and it sprouts, from the surface. So that's the upside down twist as far as demonic sacred words and symbols, which is in Greek and Latin hieroglyphics. I've been on this research for so long, and it's just crazy with how many butterfly effect stuff where instead of taking a while to remember, I just jump in and everyone around me is obviously like the movie where they didn't notice, but you notice things besides yourself. And that whole part of being almighty, being, male, immortal, mortal, immortal instead of immortal. That's the whole part of needing to be born for our children. Have your soul and spirit, fuse, and then take the whole cookie cutout shape of the vessel and pretty much have an astrophysical spiritual body. And, it could do a lot more transform animality and, stretch or shapeshifter or, you know what I mean? So when you had gurus back in the day, you had, uniform of one neutral world. And then all of a sudden, science and all of them wanted to split the brain's frequencies, like I don't know, just the middle part of half and half. Male and female separate. Black Widow, as far as Black Sun, the one that saved the descendant of her or the spouse being right there about to get his head cut off on Apocalypto. It's like, nah, not that one. So the Black Sun was like, boom. And then they started laughing and then let him do the little Hunger Games running and stuff with everybody throwing spears and stuff. Well, you'll notice that has to do with the fallen angels. So there's many forms of vessels and avatars. You have the Black Sun, which is the God part. You have an archangel. You have the Black Dragon, which is the crown or fire that's like the solar sun, except it's black. It's a black solar sun, so it's camouflage. And that right there has black solar flares, and that's like guardian side as far as having a guardian on their Earth. But that one being the female side and me being the male side, that's where it's like the father and mother come down every time. So there's like a ladder type of bridge of how we're connected. And people are like, "You're making this stuff up." I'm like, "Dude, pay attention to what you think is like fake because when you had imagination, when you came humble like a child, you loved movies like Mortal Kombat. You loved freaking, Outer World and Mortal World. Like it's no matter what, there's a confrontation as far as rivalry. Good and bad. So and two that is one being Almighty Mother and Father, and one skin being the Son, and one vessel being the Archangel. That's where people didn't get taught right. And you look at all the photos in the Bibles and stuff, you'll see female getting mad attacking demons that are in her child's vessels, and you'll see berserker with like boobs or tail because it's like both of them, and it's like they woke up late. Like the first week creating the earth, it was 7 days, and then the eighth day eternal as far as rest day. But her having the oracle part of the third eye, her vision was so bad that it made her and me almost already pop out. You know what I mean? So when you're splitting molecules and whatnot, just like a microwave would be cooking popcorn, it was the Almighty with the female that almost popped out, went separate ways. And in my expression, I said it's like being in a car with a huge explosion where your driver, your passenger just get swung out of our doors, opposite sides. It's that type of part of being made out of frequency of love that you're scared and hurt and you don't know you can't feel them no more, that you just might just let yourself die as far as being immortal, dying from the disease of heartbreak. As they say, is in these type of ways, mortal world, but it's deeper than that because getting the frequency of losing your children, when they're in the vessel and then they get a host and then they get thrown to these spots that I had to go undercover, figure out, I mean, after a while of me always investigating what happened to, the children, not just like, my son Michael or like, me being Jesus. Like, it's always like back and forth in that sense because Michael having two sides, male and female, the son also had a split. So also the part where they put it in the Bible, God split from wrath, everything split simultaneously down the middle. So whether it was the two little dragons that kept twisting, like the medical sign, or like the uh, hospital cross, but the old pagan way, it still goes down the line exactly where they meet. You know what I mean? Like everything splits from the beginning to today. So you have your Witch Mountain twin or your Freaky Friday twin or your whatever the heck, like good versus bad. You also have many other ones I had to uncover. And why am I putting this out there? Because I always put these out there. Go to Victor Osborne Facebook. I had a lot more of my research earlier. And, this beginning of the year and ending of last year, I didn't really put too much, but it was better in that sense because my stuff kept getting stolen. So when you understand how a trifecta actually goes from, one reality to two reality to just everything going crazy as far as like not knowing what police reports, people's deaths, and people being missing for weeks or months, and like you barely were gone for a day or two. It's that type of stuff where you'll notice if you pay attention closely. Like today is June 19th, and then tomorrow, if you're smart, you'll pick it up like, what? Yesterday was June 19th. Today's June 19th. I've noticed that, so I had to break down time magic. I had to freaking destroy the shit out of this Genesis that kept having us recycle because a lot of first and second responders know if it's already the sixth chapter, they would usually say stuff like, "Who cares? It's just, that world's gonna end anyways," and it's because they're getting ready for it to start all over. Fallen angels have this code as far as like stay quiet, the meek, as far as keep it moving, being telepathic, but once the one that gets in your brain as far as being a demon glands, from after death. It's not a cancer exactly because both have the same properties of being half dead, half alive. Being able to eat, go find your prey, but not do anything else, you know? So it's a lazy part of being dead and half dead and half alive, you know what I mean? Brain dead, stupid, robotic, evil that just, runs around and stuff. And that's the same property of cancer because cancer, if it's dead, it does not move, it does not grow, it doesn't do anything except deteriorate. But cancer only deteriorates the vessel and spreads. So there is a property of like 1 to 2 as far as like one part alive, 2 part dead. You know these atomic numbers and masses you also got to look at because in the Bible 4 is considered the number for death, but that's only when the mother tree, the tree of life, being uh, my half, the female, her name is Satan, and everyone thought she was the devil, but when she sacrificed herself as far as being an immortal, that tree of life was no longer at risk of getting destroyed, because if you pull a tree of life out, it's eternal, and it's not evolved to have its second stage of being um, um, like me. What is that called? Eternal and infinite. aside of her not being infinite, she's gone. What happened to her? Nothing erased existent. So with her going to the eternal side of afterlife, being uh, eternally alive in the dead world, she also got grabbed by a bunch of demons in that demon army shit. Even though it sounds stupid, because it looks like a bunch of people. They have energies and stuff. They might be all tatted with demon tattoos, but it's not like movies where you thought you saw them with horns and stupid stuff like that. They look just like us and whatnot, but they're in their vessels from a different time. It's a little bit more advanced in magic as far as the properties already being immortal. And where does that start off? There's always that part of a double mirror twist and duality, and what I mean, something you created and then something of another property. That also explains why I was rushing everyone to try to get into the fourth dimension, start having abilities and train and do all the things that I was doing earlier on. Um, but magic kind of like slowed down as far as people trying to use it in different ways to like reset the course and make me forget and make everyone else forget. And I figured out the different ways. You have to. Uh, well, there was a couple technology type of things, but there was also the current energy flow and the rotation of the sun as well as it orbiting. So when you know about tectonic plates and magnetic pulse and North Pole, South Pole, you'll know that you're able to just ride this, mine shaft roller coaster thing that's even with just, putting pressure on a ball like if you're in the ball and you're walking it. That type of magnetism is, in simple, easy freaking inventions, from a fan to a drill to a freaking little locomotive freaking toy set. It's just always going to keep it going. So you have that property, and then you have the frequency as far as people working on frequencies and splitting the frequency tone. You end up having two tones in which you have two earths, a negative and positive from a neutral. And, early on in Facebook last year, people were calling it a mission and a purpose. And their frequency was from 1332, which was the whole amount. It was 963 and 369. And, if you were doing it even as far as proportions, it would have been 666 on one side even and 666 even on the other side, no negatives. So there's another flaw as far as them not doing anything for science that was valuable for everybody. It was actually to defeat everyone by having people influential as well as visitors or, people taking the vessels uh, as hosts and stuff. And they're over here. So everything that was positive once, all positive energy, all electrons, all atoms, everything, we started having that whole breakdown of it being negative. Swine flu. We're having black plague. We're having, a bunch of rabbit poop in our vegetables, and everything just getting infected. And you're wondering how this happened over time. Well, I mean, what was it? The 1300s or whatever, the Black Plague, like right after they got rid of the Moors, and they also unleashed one of those texts that was really, really racist and torturous and a lot of witchcraft, a lot of crazy stuff. That's one of the books that are missing from the 66 texts. So they got done with all this ritual sacrifice and stuff, getting racism into play as far as practicing it with torture. So therefore, it's already in the muscle memory to trick psychology, and what I mean, have people adapt. So now you look at the 1800s, 1900s, and especially 1700s too, where they were practicing it continuously until now. You had people that were really, really cruel, being racist and really being vile and very dangerous. Just dragging people, burning, drowning, whipping. I mean, it was just really, really sad to see mankind's creation doing this to each other. But as far as that goes, it's a lot of muscle memory that's from the spirit that just open a page. It was like, oh, I needed this and that. Like it was, time to wake up. So I wasn't doing this research my whole life or nothing. It just came more at the end of 2023. And what else happened? Back to the demons part. So yeah, that stuff is real, and demonology, as far as it being a lot more advanced, we got rid of it in BC, and then a copy of it being in English, but it also was not the same magic. It was cheap magic, but still, when you put cheap magic in the proportion to substitute, sometimes it's a lot more like ickier. It's messier. It's just terrible. The properties really, really evolve instead of just being magic. So, with that being said, you have all of these other things that are happening, and with this whole thing, like, what is your point? What's this about? Well, God made creation. This visitor came, wanted to take over creation, as well as wanted to make sure that it ate up everything that was positive because that's how it lived. But it also was the frequency of influence being, the whisper in the void. So that's where it got to come back, as far as it being like we got rid of it. All of a sudden, it reached, the council of the brethren, in Greek and stuff like that. So you have all these properties of demons, witchcraft, black magic, AI, frequency, signals, radio signals, broadcasting, and just having that void, and different things that have antennas. When you look at the butterfly effect, you'll see left wing, white, left wing, right wing, just like how I talk about the orbit of the Earth and the current, of its orbiting system. If you notice that a lot of times planets are actually starting to get controlled by powers, by people making sure that the orbit spins closer to the sun, further from the sun. Why are you going to do an inner pull like that? To shift change. Just like if you're on a long, skinny road and like it was about to, turn, you have to hurry up and push to the other side. So with everyone bobbing and weaving like that, with the, part of frequencies and molecule splitting, you end up doing the purge and merge constantly with these astral bodies of gas. This whole part of Jesus walking on water. Well, my beautiful Ark Noah, as far as it, you know, original name back then, is a big body of water, even though it's solid. So I try to let people know how Victorial is, the secret code of Jesus is victorious. Victorio in USA. California, which was Egypt, named after the queen, Calafia. San Diego, also with how, empires and all try to take it back to China and all that stuff because this is Solar Dragon. Solar Dragon, Solar Sun God, oh God, fire, carbon based universe. So when people try to say, oh, we were here before them, this and that, it's like, dude, don't let your ancestors be thieves and dummies to trick you, Because they're my ancestors too. They're just a long distant tribe that came after me. So we're all equal, but the stupidity right there of people just being manipulated, and I think it had a lot to do with the influence of demons and stuff. So back to the butterfly effect, it's the same as the moth or the fly. On one side you have poison, the other side you have like the cure for it because it's the antivirus of that poison. And you have the properties just like BC being backwards with the X factor of 33 years of a gap, and then the AD 33, is very important as far as putting those two openings back together because two threes facing each other ends up making a perfect eight. So, like I said, 8 days a week, another subliminal message as far as a movie. I mean, I just put it all together as far as this is the type of stuff that I thought of to make sure that I rewired my mind to go through the last Genesis and not have to redo 6 chapters of Genesis. and finally get back to, infinite and eternal with the wifey as soon as I could with this 21st century. So, also with the antennas being very important because a lot of people don't know that sometimes horns on different animals are also antennas. Bullfrog, uh, like the lizards and everything, they pick up frequencies. You know what I mean? Everything is yours to pick up. Cats pick up frequencies from their whiskers, as well as, being interdimensional protectors of life, protecting 9 solar systems. And graduate, you're supposed to have 10 solar systems. So there's a biggie right there. Plus, they pick up frequencies and balance with their tail. So there's different ways to know how to pay attention and analog all of your freaking senses and how to double them and really go up to 40 instead of 5 senses. But, you know, 4 is basically for the atomic mass and atoms, or I mean elements, and the circle of life with those being in it, like how it used to be ancient world symbol before it became a Nazi symbol. You know what I mean? Every single place they actually worked with the natives and looked out for each other and hunted demons. That's why they all had that 4 with the symbol. Because, like I said, we taught everybody to use good magic from the spirit world of this universe that taught us simply and that fast. But back to the butterfly, their antennas, they have little circle ball tips, kind of like uh, curved baseball sluggers, like the end cap where you hold the handle, it has a little ball cap. Then you see like the ones that are like horns that are really ugly, demonic, and that's like cockroaches and moths. So you got to pay attention to how evolution evolves because for the primitive, not so caring and immature, impulsive, rude behavior person living today, whether they're, early adult or old as heck thinking they know it all, and there's a million of them out here. Trust me, I mean, for who I am with, everlasting looking youngness, even though I look beaten up, needing to shave and stuff, homeless, I still am way older than everybody. And it gets tiring when everyone tries to tell you that same thing. Like it's, you know, uh, broken record set for everyone to kind of live that same life and say those same exact words and never evolve. It was part of that demonstration to try to make sure that Genesis keeps just getting your victims and like, okay, we'll get our demon army to grow and God won't notice and we'll take out God. And it really evolved as far as them teaching mankind how to, write a book and get everyone with a thought and vision and vision fusion and a movie. So basically, the Almighty being creation and in creation, outside creation, and being every single thing of creation. God has to be that little piece of rock. God has to be that little torn piece of leaf. God has to be that snowflake. God has to be this chair and the particular and all the vibrating living parasites that make spirit and all of this, right here. So it's been pretty terrible as far as being infinite, being also known as the spirit of hope, because it's a continuance of life. The children are our life. So Jesus being, like from Michael and Satan to being the son, he's the spirit of hope. But because of the eternal wife, when she's fully strong, she would go back and forth after death on this side without harm or anything. It's that part of being her son that I was able to be the Holy Ghost. So again, Holy Ghost is because if you get rid of the eternal life of it being living, then it's no longer going to be holy and it won't ever be a ghost again. Everyone else is not eternal. It's just a ghost because that's where they're eternal in the mortal world as a ghost. Kind of sad, kind of scary, but a lot of people really didn't pay attention, didn't care. They just thought, getting the money, winning the bank, or robbing the bank, or doing a lick, or assassinating somebody that owns gas, and you're greedy. Whatever the betrayal, it's just eternity is way too long, and it goes on forever. And a lot of mistakes, like trying to make sure that the children aren't traumatized. So that side of the brain that's not dominant, that hardly ever works, will right away autopilot and like take over as far as fleeing you from the vessel right when you're about to die. And that's the Almighty always doing that. I've been trying to tell people for the last 2 years, it's an autopilot. So when you're that rock, when you're that chip, when you're that block of wood, you're going to get chopped, you're going to get dropped, you're going to get thrown. And all of those deaths, you just have to sit it out, like, and then wait till you're, you know, rising again as far as reincarnated. I mean, the part of infinity, infinite life, as far as being mortal, is a part of being a phoenix, you know, being an actual red nebula, big ball of gas, and with that being eternal, the female side, that's where you both drop as far as one skin, and the archangel being the avatar, male and female married, you share one spirit, one soul, you know. So for the children of God, you do it backwards as far as finding each other. As far as God making the universe, well, finding myself on where I began, as far as right here, and then coming back to it, this is just one little part where it had to get to here to have it kind of restart instead of having the Genesis over and over. And, being who I am, I'm still trying to figure out way, way, way back, humanoids, freaking Elielites, and all these different types of families and relatives. And no matter what, it's like I keep finding that as I go up, finding my higher self, I'm the one that's the creator, not the younger brother that's supposed to inherit the keys. You know what I mean? I'm not going to be the next leader just because everyone's like, why him? It's because no matter what, I keep being born with the next class, with the next generation. And that's very important as far as keeping a strong lineage, when you're in God form, when you actually ascend, when you're actually past the Dragon Ball stage. That's important to not infect and become a Titan egg that ends up looking like a black moon that's just getting bigger and bigger, sucking up living energy. You end up, wanting to be either a red sun or like a lunar sun, as far as there's a lunar moon. But that's because Lucifer was, kind of dead for a bit, but at the same time, he's not dead. You just got to get his heart pumping. He's eternal, but he was at a stage where he was also most unclean, and that was from demons infecting him. So the whole Freddy Krueger thing and all that, he had three demons hiding in his vessel as an archangel, from Earth to second level. That's the one, and of course, sadly, those demons were the ones that did sick stuff like, Third Emperor Caligula. I mean, remember, Earth split into two. So instead of that flower of life or star of Victorio, it ended up being three dimensions instead of six dimensions. So Earth ended up being two parts, negative and positive, being the third rock from the sun, instead of being either a fifth element, being the fifth star, because the sun is, the first star. I apologize. Fifth star because the fifth is the oh God. So it's zero is one to five. That's six, or it's the six, or it's the fifth rock from the sun. I get confused. The sixth rock from the sun. Yeah. So, anyways, you gotta understand on that whole thing of manifestation, uh, freeze, and possession and manipulation and hypnosis and all this type of shit, because it's very important to know the universe is a frequency with all kinds of tones, measurements, vibrations, heartbeat, patterns, rhythm. colors, smells, textures, all of that. And it's part of your heritage to be able to read that and locate, lost children, lost souls, as far as who's this? This isn't my child. This is a demon. He's trying to pretend to be a cute kid that's human. So, ripping out the neck or something of someone that's a demon, it releases the soul and spirit. And, you see a lot of ancient cultures do stuff like that, samurai's death, all these ways as far as making it quick and clean, but also freeing the soul and spirit because being immortal and eternal, you want your children to be safe with you rather than lost forever. And that hurts you. You're still connected spiritually. So even if you weren't connected, I mean, you wouldn't be a god if you didn't care because you didn't feel them emotionally. And being a parent, you're always going to be like, I had to lose a child. Um, these days, I actually am not this good at crying or showing emotions because I've been getting my ass kicked in 2025 with so many people being cruel, not caring about, more than the Bible. They don't care about the actual life that was crucified. A lot of stuff they weren't able to be taught right. And, you could say that, oh, I'm new, this is my first time living as far as being mortal. No, you've been living the same life mortal for billions of years now. And it's like I've been having to be in every single thing to observe and report and keep getting my investigation. So just remember that chapter stuff of Genesis. It's no longer going in this crazy thingy, but also multi-universe as far as trifecta and things swinging, in and outward towards the sun. That's why they got to get away with destroying us every time with Big Bang theories, and that actually brought evolution to this not only cyber security, but also the cyber world. As far as another crazy subliminal message with like Free Guy and Wreck-It Ralph and all that. So remember the whole Om saying it